power of choice. And one of the things that we're seeing in industry, and then I have some good folks here who are going to talk about how they use FME with data in real time to solve a particular problem that they have. So, yeah. So first of all, I'm going to start with a story. It's a story many of us have lived through, and it's the story of being locked into a system. About 10, 15 years ago, we had this great idea. We found one system. The vendor came and told us this amazing story about how if we put everything into this one system, we would be able to see our entire business. We'd be able to see our customers. We'd be able to understand our team. So and our support. We use it for CRM. We even put HR and training. And so we put everything into the system, only to discover that we didn't have the best of breed. We kind of had this, this kind of the worst of breed in some sense. We never got the view of the customer that we thought we were going to get. Many of the tools, of course, that they had didn't actually stay current and weren't the best of breed. And so we were like, how are we going to, get out of this? Because what we really wanted was the ability to choose. Industry is moving so fast. All of us need the ability to choose the tools that are the best. We need to be able to choose the databases that we want. We need to be able to choose all the applications we want, where to store it. Do we want to be in the cloud? Do we want to be on-prem? But we were completely trapped. To make matters worse, when we looked at what we were paying for in detail as we were building out how to get out of this, one of the line items was a competitor for us. And so I'm like, this is insulting. So I called the vendor up and I said, yeah, no, we compete with this company. Why are we paying for it? And he says, oh, you pay less if you have that on your purchase order rather than pay more. So if we took it off, they'd actually charge us to not use it, which we weren't using it anyway. And so that was really the, sort of the thing that really drove it home. We needed the choice, the ability to choose our own future. And things are moving so fast today that we think this is the single most important thing that all of us in technology have to be able to do. Choose the tools. AI. Choose what AI are you going to use? I mean, there's just every week there's a new announcement. On-prem, off-prem, and so that's what we do as a company. We just give you choice. Whatever system you want. We're happy to make it work. So as we hear about the AI revolution, and there's lots of discussions about have we been here before? And of course the answer is we don't know because we're not on the other side of it. Maybe it's like the dot bomb. We all remember that, where all of a sudden or maybe it really is something like as big as the Industrial Revolution, which completely changed society. Entire industries were wiped out. Entire new ones were created. There were some industries that went through perfect. Spirits. People drank before the Industrial Revolution. They drank during, and they drank after. If we think about the AI industry, of course, there's power, electrical companies. All we ever hear about with AI is where are they going to get all the power to run these data centers. There's going to be government, there's going to be transportation, there's going to be a lot of things. So it's not going to be, some areas are going to be fine, but when it comes to, multiplying this muscle power, everybody in this room, we're kind of wondering, what is it going to look like? And we may compare them as well. There's things that the Industrial Revolution needed, steam and electricity to increase some muscle. We even still measure it in horsepower. And then data centers and GPUs, you hear, everybody's favorite came to the UK and announced all these data centers that's going to be built, and there's data centers being built around the world. And again, the thing that you need for the Industrial Revolution is you need coal and iron, make steel, and raw materials to build things. When it comes to the AI revolution, what do you need? You need data. That is the material, the raw material that the AI revolution is built with. And it's really simple. The Industrial Revolution can't exist, couldn't have happened without the raw materials to build things. just like the AI revolution needs data. We talk about, oh, we're running out of data. The entire internet's been scraped. What are we going to be doing? What are we going to do now? Now, so people talk about synthetic data, and how to create synthetic data. There's also a lot of the data is behind firewalls. Organizations are sitting on these treasure troves of data. And so, today you can't talk about AI without talking about data, and you can't talk about data without talking about AI. Right now, it's all about LLMs and how many parameters they take and things like that. But when I'm doing my work, I don't really need an AI that knows about nuclear physics, right? I just don't know that. So what we're seeing is more of these SLMs that have been trained on specific. So let's say, for example, we have one our legal department use that's been trained on BC and Canadian law. There's lots of cases, there's lots of data, and this company sells this SLM, and our legal department pays. It's not the cheapest thing we have. It's measured $10,000-$15,000 a year, but it's so worth it because it enables our legal department to do more, be more productive, to spend less time researching. But it's only trained on specific high quality data. And today changes. If we just look, you just walk on the floor there's just so much change happening. There's new databases, there's new real time, there's new systems to analyze things. There's just so much more you can do with your data. And really, if you take away one thing, it's like you have to avoid lock-in, right? You have to own your own data. You have to own your own destiny, because choice gives you the ability to just choose. You walk on the floor, you say, wow, this is really going to solve a problem for me. I need the ability to choose it and to use it, to try it out, and then just connect to my existing systems in a controlled fashion. So don't give away your choice. The choice that that we deliver, of course, is the first one: choice of data velocity. Data comes in many velocities. We're seeing a real uptick in real time, high velocity real time data. Could be EV chargers from all the stations in Europe. So when you're in your Google Maps, you see where they are and see how many cars. How many charging spots. Could be wind farms that are sending real-time telemetry data so they can, optimize the amount of power that they can are generating, or notice that, hey, that turbine's starting to is a little hotter than all the others. Maybe I need to start looking at scheduling maintenance on that one. Of course, location. You hear some vendors, they're only, to use us, you got to move to the cloud. So they tell all their customers, you got to move to the cloud. That's crazy. Customers know where their data needs to be. Not all data needs to be in the cloud or is desired in the cloud. Let's go to the Microsoft booth. They have on-premise cloud now, right? You can put okay. Yeah. And so location is another thing. You should be able to have your processing fabric landscape match the data fabric. And AI, this is a big one. What AI are you going to use? The answer is, like most things in technology, it depends. It depends on what data you have, and it depends on what you're trying to do. Like UK Power Networks, they had all these handwritten notes, and they had to pull information out. Turns out, for the best for them was Google Gemini. Another company in the UK, they build properties, and they ended up needing to use 3 AIs to basically automatically build their listings. And so again, they chose the AI based on the data they had and what they wanted to do. So, and choice of model or platform. So that would basically wherever it is. The choice of data type is the last one, and I'm going to talk about, because I'm going to hand it off to our guests who are going to tell you what they did with data type to get more value from their data. So with that, I'll hand it off. Yeah.
Thanks, Dom. So just to start off, so who are we? So we are West Yorkshire Combined Authority. So I'm Matt, and we've got Adam. So my role at West Yorkshire Combined Authority is as the spatial intelligence team leader. So we are responsible for all things spatial data within the organisation. We represent Leeds, Bradford, Calderdale, Kirklees and Wakefield. So combined, it's over 2 million people. And we oversee everything in terms of transport, housing, skills, economic growth and climate. So for example, in terms of transport, Adam here works on the City Region Sustainable Settlement Scheme, which is a £2 billion transport project that is basically to improve sustainable transport across the region. And we are led by our Mayor, Tracy Braden there, alongside various different council leaders. And just a quick fact about Leeds and West Yorkshire. Leeds is the biggest European city without a mass transit network. So what we're about to talk about is how we improve bus service across the region. So it's imperative to get people around moving to jobs, to cultural venues, and just interacting in society. So our challenge, so the mayor has accepted the fact that we need to franchise our bus network within the region. So over the next few years, we're going through the system to basically take over the bus network, so we are now in control. But as part of that control, it gives us accountability. The buses need to improve. We see that in basically every survey that we run across the region. If you speak to anybody in West Yorkshire about public transport, the one thing they say is the bus service needs to improve. So how do we do that? Well, we are sitting on basically a landfill of data that has been collected over the years. So we have 15 years worth of live bus location data that we can look at. So there's over 2.5 million data points just in the last 4 years alone. In total, we estimate to be at 26 million. It's so big that we've not even looked at all of it. But what we need to do is use that data to highlight where the buses are not moving in to their timetable, and basically start to show the organisation this is where your issues are, and then provide the transport planners with the information and knowledge on basically where to locate the next set of schemes. Because what we've seen in the past is that where schemes go is not necessarily where the problem is. So really honing in on where the problem is and what we need to fix. Then over to you, Alan.
Thank you. So, hello everyone. As Matt mentioned, I'm Adam. I'm the JS analyst as part of the team. So, just picking up on something that Don said a few minutes ago, to be able to have effective data systems, you require the data. The problem that we had is what happens if you have too much data. Now, just to reiterate, we were talking about approximately 28 million data points within the bus recording system that we had. Now, these data points have been recorded from 2006 up to the present day at the time we did the study in December 2024. So we'll be talking up to that point. The data, so essentially the first question that we had to ask, as with any major data project, is of all this data, what is actually going to be useful for us? So we had to, so we went through a series of analysis to understand what data is going to be relevant. So in this case, from 2006 through to the present day, which bus line is still active? Where do we actually currently have the bus stops? The next factor, as we're living in the day and age we are now, was COVID. COVID obviously caused a huge issue with data collection. It changed averages, it changed patterns very significantly. So straight away that gave us a very clear point that the lockdown in the UK ended in March 2021. So that essentially gave us a start date for modern data that we could use. The third factor that we had to consider was hardware. The fact is, we're a combined authority, we're a public body. We don't have supercomputers to crunch through millions and millions of data points. Our laptops aren't going to be the best in existence that we're able to just type up a macro and get it all processing. And really, this is where our use with FME came in. I've just realized I've not actually been clicking through the slides, so there we go. So what we did to move forward is thanks to FME, this gave us a useful set of tools that allowed us to start processing this data. Essentially, what we did to filter this down, like I said, we selected our dates. So we went down to 2021, And then we had to start asking ourselves, what is going to be useful here? Now, we want to know what times should we focus on. So, are we going to be focusing on peak times, inter-peak times? Are we just going to be focusing on weekdays? Are we going to be focusing on weekends? What about school holidays? Now, the great thing about FME that we use is that because you build workspaces, because we put to essentially what you're seeing here is multiple macros that are all running and interacting with each other. Because we're able to build these, it gives us a good element of repeatability. And so we were able to essentially create multiple outputs to answer many questions. Now, just to go to the end product that we decided on, West Yorkshire has 14,000 bus stops. We decided the best way to measure how effective our bus network is being is to understand the punctuality of buses at each bus stop. Now, going back to the data that we had, about 28 million, then we had to find so we reduced this down ultimately to about 2.3 million data points that were fundamentally useful for what we needed. And we focused on the punctuality of the bus arriving at the stop, and the end goal of this was to average all of this data down to the 14,000 bus stops. So for each stop, we wanted to know what, over the time periods 2021 to 2024, is the average the average punctuality of the bus. In understanding this, we might have an idea of where we have consistent issues, where we're having buses that are consistently arriving late or consistently leaving late. And for the people using the public transport, as Matt's pointed out, this is the only public transport essentially available across West Yorkshire, then this is really quite important information. So we've pulled all this information together, and this is essentially the outputs of what we ended up with. Now, what you're seeing here is the data by year, but as I've already said, we were able to pull this out for multiple different categories. We were able to pull this out for how this looked with using just weekends, how it looked on school holidays versus term time, how it looked during peak traffic versus none. And with all these different with all these different data sets, we're able to start answering questions that we weren't up to this point able to address, such as if we're seeing bus stops that are consistently seeing buses that are outside of being on time. And just to clarify, we're using the government definition of on time here, which is 1 minute early to 5 minutes and 59 seconds late. Then if we're seeing stops that are consistently having these issues, not just during peak flow, but also during, let's say, school holidays on weekends when there's fundamentally less traffic, then we know that's not just a traffic flow issue, that's going to be more of a road network issue. We're starting to be able to understand where we need to focus our work as an authority on the roads to really improve our public transport. And I'm sure you're looking at this thinking, yeah, it looks quite nice, but I want you to imagine for a second that I show this to a room of people. While it looks nice, not many people are going to be able to come out with an answer from this. You're going to enjoy looking at it, but you're going to leave the room, move on to your next meeting, so what? And so that really leads us to where we've been able to take this data. You see, in connecting our bus stops back to our bus network, back to each of the routes of the network, we're able to start understanding where the slowdowns are actually occurring. Now, this route that I've pulled out for you today, if you actually look at the first stop, which is all the way down here, and the last stop all the way up there, there's very little variation in time. Essentially, the bus is setting off on time and reaching its final point on time. Now, according to, if we look at this, if we're just looking at stats, then this isn't going to be coming out. We're not going to be seeing this as a problem at all. Whereas what we can actually see here is if you were, say, to board the bus in Headingley, which is part of Leeds down here, and then get off all the way up in Menston, the little orange blob there, you'd be having a journey which is consistently leaving late and arriving late. And so that obviously is going to change your impression of the bus service that you're using. So now that we know this, we'll be able to we're able to identify there are clearly problems on the road sections between specific stops, and we can focus in our plans and the work that we do as a combined authority to these areas to try to improve the flow across the whole network. Matt, if I can just pass back to you.
Thanks, Alan.
Yeah.
And that was also my bus route as well, so I can
There we go.
vouch that there are delays on it. So yeah, overall, what has this actually allowed us to do? So firstly, it's allowed us to basically analyze a big data set that just to deliver faster results and cheaper. So we can look at that. So we can look at quite easily, I want to look at AM peak performance, because everything is within the data, because everything has like time within it. We can quietly put filters in, bring that data and provide that insight within a few hours. Something that before would have taken potentially days. And it's also allowed us to have those discussions and start having those discussions with our commercial partners. So for example, right now we are having discussions with bus companies for those contracts for the franchising system. And most importantly, it gives us it gives our transport policymakers the most effective data set to basically go and find out what is happening at particular locations. So it's reducing their workload, because they can essentially see the problem on the map and start to analyze why that's happening. So because of that, we've now started looking at other data sets alongside of it. So for example, things like safety, we've now brought in. So we're using the government Stats 19 data alongside data sets like this to provide scores of different routes. Other data sets we're using, such as like Strava, they provide us like all of the like cycle routes and how much cycling is happening on particular corridors. So we're bringing that in as well. And as well, things like our existing schemes that are currently being built and to be delivered. So again, it allows us to look at potentially there might be an issue on a route, and that there is a scheme in a pipeline that isn't actually targeting that particular problem. It now gives us the opportunity to go in, maybe readjust that particular scheme to help deliver better flow of traffic along that corridor. And also ultimately it's allowed us to reduce our costs. So in terms of like this type of work previously would have been handed over to maybe a consultancy, the cost would have increased and we would have been left with kind of a fixed output at the end that we wouldn't be able to interact with it that well. Because we've managed to do that in-house, we now have control. We now have the ability to answer those questions with a very short time to insight. So yeah, thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, so just a few final slides here. So the thing, they showed the interface, the no-code interface. There's lots of really smart people who are really big domain experts, but they don't know how to code. And so that in itself is valuable, because then you can also take that and have an intelligent conversation with the domain expert to understand if you're doing makes sense. You can't walk anybody who doesn't know how to code through code. So choice, their success depends on it. Your success depends on it. As I mentioned at the end, they're just now finding other data sets or choosing other data sets to pull into their, into their workflow. And so really the takeaway from us is, which we'll never do again. And the takeaway is avoid being locked into one vendor, including safe software. So yeah, we play on the edge and find out whatever tools work best with you. And, because when you are now, all of a sudden you've given your roadmap to the vendor. As we found out, we were, at the mercy of their priorities, and their priorities didn't align with their priorities. And we were also at the mercy of their pricing. And nobody wants to go on that. That was not really what we had before. It wasn't a strategy at all. It was a dependency. We would, just fear at that yearly endpoint whenever they'd come. So lock-in kills innovation. Choice creates it. Yeah, thank you so much. And if you have any other questions, we're at booth Q68 right downstairs. So thank you.
So thank you, everybody.